don't know. Yeah, but it's still capable nice to start. Okay. Yes, I will just ask the last word and move forward. Okay, I just heard that we don't have a microphone. Can the people in the last row hear me? Okay, great. Good acoustics. So this is officially labeled a workshop, but it will be a bit different format. I have a presentation which will be splitting in two parts. The first part is about weak dependencies, which are already in Fedora implemented. And the second part will be about boolean dependencies, which will hopefully come with the next RPM release and the next release of DNF, I hope, and libsolv. And we will probably, in between, we'll have a kind of discussion session on the weak dependencies first. And if we are bored with that, we will continue with the boolean dependencies. So I start with the weak dependencies first. They're already in RPM 4.12, which we released like in October, I think. So they're in the current Fedora supported. Support should also be in the create repo in both implementations. I'm not quite sure if they're actually on the builders yet. So we probably have to work release engineering about them. And support is also in DNF, basic, or to be more precise, in libsolve, which implements depsolving. They are new for tags, and we basically have stolen them, borrowed them from SUSE, which are basically close to the implementation that Debian has for ages. The status right now is that the implementation is basically there, but there's no policy, and there's actually not even a policy against them, but they are not really used. The idea is to gather some information how they should be used and maybe come up with a policy for Fedora so they can be used in the future. And I had actually hoped that you might provide some inputs there. So who of you has actually packages in Fedora? So let's say most of you. Who of you have seen my talk on the dependencies last year? Or on FATCon? Okay, a few. Okay, who of you think they urgently need new tags for their packages? At least two, that's nice.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Who think they need new tags for their packages? Or new dependencies? Okay. So, right now there is a FPC ticket for getting a policy, but it's all kind of muddy, not going anywhere, and probably needs some pushing. So that's why we're here for. They're basically these are new dependencies. Basically, they're basically all kind of like requires. So there are no new provides, but it's all requirements. They're basically three tiers or weak or strengths of requirements. There's a classical requirements which basically have to be fulfilled. Then there are weak requirements, which is recommends and supplements, which right now are basically treated like normal requirements, but can be broken without creating an error. So if you install a package with recommends another package, the package is installed by default, but if it cannot be installed for some reason, or you want to uninstall it by excluding it or removing it from the systems, you can do that. There's a lower level of even, which I call hints, which suggests and enhances. There are two ways they could be used, which I will talk about in later slides. And another thing that's new is basically have reverse requirements. They basically work like a requirement in the other package. So if you have a package which supplements another, it gets installed if the other package gets installed. That's not that interesting. I think I have a slide for that. I will probably just come back to this. So yeah, that's the reverse basis. The thing is, that's more or less not that interesting for Fedora itself, as the implied assumption is that we control all our packages, and if we need to basically add on a requirement, we ask nicely, and the developer will surely just add it most of the time, maybe. So, but the thing is, this was basically added, and that's why I'm keen of them to actually allow third parties to introduce dependencies to the basic distribution.
But with our workstation and so product approach, it might be also interesting for Fedora, because then the other packages might be.
Yeah, so the more you split up things and the less you have centralized control over everything, the more interesting they get. So you can say, well, the core components don't care about all this funky stuff over here, but the funky stuff can still, if you enable the repository, make itself connected. Yes, please?
So SUSE uses the reverse dependencies also outside of packages, in the sense of, for example, one reverse dependencies is that the driver package says, I have support, so it understand I have support for this PCI ID or for this USB
Yeah.
ID.
We're not that fancy yet, but I still have plans for the future.
Why not?
The thing is, what SUSE does is, they basically have a way to introduce system-wide dependencies or provides that don't reside in packages. So the hardware provides are basically pulled out of UDEV and then introduced into the dependency namespace.
Yes.
And so you can actually refer them from packages. And if you don't want your hardware to require a package name, basically on the silicon, you reattach the other way around. So you have a package that attaches to a hardware component or a set of hardware components, which we don't have yet, but we will. We are stealing all the good ideas from the SUSE people. slowly, but we do. So that's why they are here. And I don't know if what Fedora. So that's basically a thing. The group that are outside of core need to think about if they want to use that and if they need some kind of policy, or if you just leave that open and use it on demand. I don't know. So that's something.
Even with your private repositories, it's very useful.
Yeah. So, do we have anyone who already has a use case for this? I forced someone to write notes. Yes? For reverse dependencies.
Could be useful in Apple.
For?
Could be useful in Apple.
Yeah, for Apple. To whenever you have separate repositories. The thing is, RPM from a very basic design thing has one important, let's say, way of thinking that you want third parties to be able to package stuff. In opposite to like Debian, which has a much more we own the universe and we have tight control over everything approach. And so the reverse dependencies basically make this possible now, finally.
Can the reverse dependencies depend on a combination of packages? Like if these two packages are installed, then also
Not yet, but they will. There's a second part where we do boolean expressions, and then I hope we get there like in this year. So then there's the weak dependencies. The question here is how to use them. They would basically allow the distribution to be basically split in two parts, like the thing we really have to install and a part that we typically install but might deselect or something like this. The problem with that is that the distribution as a whole needs a kind of idea where the line of separation goes. So that's the tricky thing, and I'm hoping for input on this. Of course, you could there are some obvious cases like documentation and maybe even document viewers and stuff like this. That's maybe pretty trivial, but when you come to tools and stuff, you can basically continue to say, well, the core system might need this one tool or might not. You could also, I think it's currently not implemented, but you would, it's basically similar to the optional packages in groups, where you could basically install them or not. So the interesting part here is to come up with a policy that's either generic enough to be applied everywhere, or to have different policies on different kind of packages to say, well, we want these typically as a weak dependency or not. How does this work basically on a technical level is if the dep server by default does try to install them, and if something goes wrong, it just drops the package. There we do on the libsolve level, the actual dep solver we also borrowed from SUSE. There's actually the possibility to switch that on and off. And we have not yet a command line switch or option in DNF as far as I know. But it's like a five-line patch, I guess. And so the thing is here, basically, as soon as Fedora says, well, we want to have that way, the DNF guys will probably implement it for you, if you ask nicely. And
Nice.
so, and then there's the very weaks. The problem is a bit the dynamic nature. How do you SUSE guys call them? The weak and not so weak and stronger weak dependencies?
I don't really remember, but the use case is for the UI actually.
So you have to really use UI stuff that uses that.
Yeah. And the basic idea is like if you shop on Amazon, customers who bought this also look at this,
Yeah.
also bought this, and this is why we have these.
Yeah.
But they are not used so much.
Yeah. But these are basically the two. So the reason why we implemented is basically because SUSE implemented them first this way, and we want to mirror them because we want to get both versions of RPM closer together, and we've done some work to make this happen. And the thing is, if we want to use them at all, there are basically two use cases they can use for. One is the SUSE approach to say, well, we want a UI that actually offers additional packages for the user. And if you install it, and it says, well, you could also want to look at these. The question is if we really want to do that, because it requires a lot of UI that needs to be still programmed and written and updated. The second thing is it also is used during depth solving to make to prefer packages over others, which is a problem we are currently running into, that we're switching from YAM to DNF. So there are two depth solvers and they have two different strategies of picking packages, which is surprising for some people that although the packages didn't change, there are other package sets being chosen. And the hints could basically be used to actually, within the packages state, which packages should be preferred over others. So we're talking about things like postfix versus send mail or whatever. So whenever you have...
Will it have a priority level or what is it?
No, it will probably not have a priority level. It's basically, maybe it's counting the number of hints, but I think it will basically...
Voting system.
Yeah, we will do voting, and then basically there will be a second term election and stuff like this.
Okay.
No, it basically will prefer packages which have a hint from an installed package to the available package, and prefer that over a package which doesn't have.
You can ask in the UI if you use it once to install that one, but you don't want to have that in multiple versions.
Well, it's not, no, that you're not getting, the point is you're choosing packages of candidates. So if you have requires MTA, you can either install, so the depth solver can either install sendmail or postfix. And they're basically, either you close your eye and the depth solver will just choose one. That's what's basically happening right now. Or you have elaborated heuristics, which chooses the right one because you know that the right packages have the shorter name, which is what YAM does, among other things.
So the Fedora workstation RPM recommands postfix.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, if you want to, yeah, you could do that like this. But this is basically even weaker, which is this recommends? I have to kind of suggest this is actually. I try to remember. I try to remember it, but the names are bad. But that fits very well in the general naming scheme around RPM, because all other names are bad too. So we're fine.
So that would be the hints. Yes.
Yeah, that would be the hints, and it would. My suggestion is for now just to not do that in the UI, because my general feeling is that we want to ask the users less and less questions and not more and more questions, because people are kind of tired of fiddling with all the packages. Yeah, I don't know. If there's a huge amount of people who say, well, we need better way of browsing all those 10,000 packages, maybe we want to do this. So I don't know. Are there opinions on this?
Well, I will show you different approach which is Fusion 2. There is something like provides. Yeah? So you cannot say this package requires MTA and it will pick up some package providing MTA. But you can specify more dependencies which are which you can select one of them. Like you were talking about booleans.
Yeah.
This is something like that. And the great thing in Django is that the order in which it is listed in the boolean expression defines the preference.
Yeah.
So if you say migrate application requires mail or fix, and in this order, then the package server will first try the first option. And
Yeah. We will add, as in the second part, we will talk about the Boolean expressions, which also, of course, include OR, which basically is a list of choose one of them. And as far as I understand, libsolve does not yet prefer the first entry over the later ones, but it's something that we probably might want to add or get added. Michael Schroeder from SUSE, who is author of the libsolve, is very cooperative and has already done quite some work to make stuff happen. So that's an option we will probably try to get working during this year.
Because if you have a package which, for example, needs to download some file from one server, then it uses, for example, sqlite or widget or something like that, and it supports these tools by different level.
Yeah.
For example, the tool knows that it can work with widget more better than with CR. Then actually it's much more easier for the packager to specify explicitly in the package first require widget, then require CR.
I hope we get that far to actually do that.
I think the minimum interface that the users will want is to be able to decide at what level the weak dependency should be treated like a strong one. Like if they normally you would say if it's a recommend, I drag it in by default, and if it's a suggest, I don't. But I think there will be users who will say, please install everything even if it's only suggested, and there will be others who will say, please don't install anything that's not strictly required. And I think these levels of treatment of weak dependencies should be the minimum configuration available to the user.
Yeah, I guess we will get it added to DNF. The thing is, the underlying library already supports it. I guess in SUSE you already can do this with Zipper. And it's not a big deal. I mean, it's just either do this or don't. So it's not rocket science.
So you are only seeing the hints when you have multiple packages providing the same thing.
Yeah.
Quite long.
That might be my suggestion. If you don't want to use them for UI stuff.
I can see that for the OS could be Fedora workstation, Fedora server RHEL, which provides a YAML repo and maybe also gives some hints what to use in case of multiple choices.
But I think the strong recommends probably should be treated like a requires by default. I mean, that's the reason there is the difference between recommends and suggests. Because the suggests means means it could be useful, but maybe not. And the recommend says in most cases we will want this. And
Yeah.
Normal users want this, but special users can remove the package without any
Any else?
cost.
Yeah.
So for SUSE, the original use case were that enterprise customers are very conservative in terms of number of packages.
Yeah.
So they really look at every package.
Yeah.
Do I really need it? No, then out.
We have something even worse than enterprise customers.
For every package you change it to recommends instead of requires.
Yes.
If it can be removed without any.
We have something even worse than customers. We have cloud users, and And they do care about the disk sizes of their images because they're spinning up so many of them. And actually, I think base working group has been doing some work on this. You've been on the group, right?
Yes, I am.
So maybe you want to give a brief overview about the work there.
We wanted to have the base, the core system to be self-contained, so you can recompile yourself.
Yeah.
As the core operating system can recompile itself and be a balloon of itself. So I looked into all the build requirements. By the way, is there something for build requirements?
No. And the thing is,
Of course, so we...
That would be also nice.
yeah, there is something. There are optional builds. You can do with and without in
That's horrible if you want to have reproducible builds.
yeah, that's the point. That's the point where we don't have weak build. That's the point where we don't have weak build requirements because you want to have reproducible builds. The thing is, if I do this with weak dependencies, then maybe I get the library, maybe not. Maybe there's something broken, and then the package gets actually built without an error, but missing support for MySQL or something. That's not something we want. So that I've thought about this because I'm always the guy who says, yeah, let's do this, but no.
I don't think we want to get to that.
Yeah, we want reproducible builds, and we want rather an error and fix it than things. Yeah, building fine, especially not as a distribution.
Even for QA, yes.
No, that's a nightmare.
I mean, in the future, it will be possible to set like a global flags where I will like say, okay, these are my build requirements for the bootstrap build. These are my build requirements for the normal build. Then I will set like a global flag all, and I will don't build like documentation. I will skip checks, and I will build packages with the build dependencies for the bootstrap build. So I will get like
You can already do that in RPM, but it's a lot of work. You have macros. You can just set a macro, and you can. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of. We have a lot of pain because RPM is so complicated to handle. But that's one of the things it can do good because you have a Turing complete mechanism at your hand, and you can easily do that. You can have sections which get deselected or ignored on a setting of a variable or whatever. So that's in theory not difficult to do, but you of course have to go through all the packages and figure out what to actually exclude, and it's all. Yeah, you have to do that anyway, but it's a lot of work, especially if you have a small number of packages like 10,000. Okay. That's the time. We are not doing this yet. So, I would at that point basically do a discussion about what would we need to get a policy into Fedora that actually makes this happen. Yes, I guess it's easier if we have a policy to actually push the stuff
I think
forward.
that must be otherwise because different people have different expectations.
Yeah.
What is optional, what is not optional. For example, if you have some code, usually in some maybe some kernel or something like that, it's just something optional, and if the optional dependency is not available, it will die. So some people said, no, this must be optional because in my part of the code it does not die. And other people, now it dies, and whenever it dies, it must be mandatory. So I think that should be something.
I spoke to the Fedora community and asked them to allow the dependency. Well, I want to make it easy, so I asked them first to allow the reverse dependency, because that's basically no declaration for package management right now, and will not change anything as opposite to requires, which some will change to suggest itself. The status is that some members are afraid, quite afraid of dependencies, and they want to have see how the package management software will handle it. I know that Jan posted status about DNF. They want to know how Anaconda will handle it, and they are curious how PackageKit, Apple, and other will handle it. So that's what I don't know. So if you know how PackageKit will handle it, if they are working on that, or
The thing is this, they are actually only processed by the dependency solver. So I think DNF didn't actually do anything to make it work.
Yeah, it just does
They just basically upgraded the libsolve for the Fedora bits that got added, and then it worked. So everything that does the dep solving via DNF or via libsolve, it will just work. Everyone doing their own dep solver, which is being
wrong.
young,
Which is wrong.
which is wrong, or which is yum, which is not dying as fast as I would hope for, but will die at some point, or at least be no longer the default in Fedora. It will just ignore those tags. So that
If it's using Floppy backend, it will download the recommends and it's so dependencies by default.
so that will also just work. The only thing that won't work and we won't make it going to work is yum, basically.
So tell it to FPC. So because if you assume they are working on policy, it's not true. They are just afraid and they wait. I think they would like to preserve that material.
Okay.
So we have to raise our voice if we want to have.
Yeah. That's why I'm here, to raise voices.
Yeah.
So yeah, for the policy, I think we should do the same as user does. If it works without the other packages, it would just be recommends or what?
Yeah, recommends.
So change it for everything, please.
I think the right thing to basically maybe dispel the concerns would be like starting with a very small corner, doing like
with the base packages, basically. The smallest core, like take atomic.
Yeah, or something like that, and just start with a handful of packages and
The
figure
packages
out.
from atomic and go over there.
Yeah.
But yeah, we want to have the policy right now. We want to define the policy. What is the policy? How the packaging policy, right?
Yeah.
The safer thing might be to start with less important packages.
Yeah, like documentation or something, as an use case.
I agree, because the atom use case is probably a very small system where it really has a hard dependency.
Yeah, but that's where it matters the most, maybe.
Yeah, but the use case for the soft dependency for us was like larger applications like some video or graphics application which has plenty of plugins where you only need few of them.
Okay.
And then you can choose by yourself, okay, I want, I don't know, MP4 and MP3, but all the rest I leave out.
Isn't that more?
I'm the guys who has the use cases, and I would like to solve the dependencies immediately, because probably I'd like to share 3 use cases I have already on my mind, and these are real life issues. Because I maintain Ruby. Currently in Florian there are 2 Ruby implementations. One is JRuby, and second is C implementation, RHEL. We would like to treat them as much as possible interchangeably. So if user prefers JRuby, then install JRuby, and in your version should run on JRuby, but currently, unfortunately, we are not there, and still the C implementation is preferred. So at the moment, both the C implementation, also the JRuby, they provide Ruby release, which is required by all packages. by now we need to have a way how to recommend, and this where the software dependency should come in. We now need to recommend that if there is no Ruby implementation on the system, that we want to prefer the C Ruby implementation. And that's where I see we should either use recommends, because recommend says that it should be recommended, and that's how I understand it, or probably suggest if it's correctly handled, but I see that suggest has way lower priority than the recommend. So go these days. It seems that I should have require Ruby release, and below that there should be recommends Ruby, and that way I should be able to force the dependencies over to install preferable C implementation unless there is already Ruby on the system. And there is this similar use case for MariaDB and MySQL, because recently DNF treats.
Can you drop me a mail with the packages? Because I kind of forced Jan to take notes, but it's probably easier if you figure out.
I know about this, but
Yeah.
Can we put the other slide there so that we can see the keywords so we can?
Yeah. No, this way.
Right.
So.
So this is my first use case. Second use case, we are doing software collections, and typically in meta package we list all packages which should be installed like default. But for example, for Ruby on Rails, there's quite huge lists of libraries like sqlite. Maybe people might start development with sqlite, but they really soon switch to some other database, MySQL or Festi. So I see that this list should not be a list of required, but it should be a list of recommends probably, because we want to install, provide them a basic set which they can start with.
Yeah.
Later, let them uninstall. If they don't use sqlite, why should they have this package at their computer?
Yeah.
We are doing something similar in Fedora by comps.
Yeah.
But comps is like other system. It's not visible in the package, so.
Comps is something that's on my list of things I need to kill at some point in the future. But we are.
First.
Yeah, but.
And actually, third use case is something like Peter mentioned. For example, there are times where Vim built Ruby bindings, and these bindings pull in Ruby libs, and now it will pull in Ruby gems and so on. Normally, people will not need this, because you start to hit this part of code as soon as you write Ruby in interactive mode or whatever. So people are able to use Vim without these Ruby bindings all the time. So there should be something like suggests. So if they really encounter that they want to write Ruby and unfortunately the Vim crash, then there should be some way how to know or how to suggest that there should be probably installed Ruby libs which are needed to execute this code path.
Yeah, but it would actually be a use case for making it a part of the UI.
Actually, this
Also,
was
command line install everything this package suggests.
Can you repeat it? I didn't.
Have a DNF command line switch to express I want to install every package. This package suggests I should have.
Yeah, or list them at least.
Which can be called maybe in the code itself to suggest.
Yeah. Jan looks happy.
If it doesn't work out, some people we could call also DNF to
just
suggest
install
to the
that
user.
package and run that stage, that config stage.
Yeah, but what if you already have this package, but now you want to install whatever is recommended by it, but not installed yet, or suggested, but not yet installed?
So if the plugin sees, I don't have Ruby installed, then issue sqlite, install myself the package from where I'm coming from, everything, which is just maybe
I get it.
because the code doesn't know
Yeah.
what else.
Yes, please.
How about using recommend and suggest and keep or make Yum to treat all these packages like the required, so that it will install automatically for dumb users, but in enterprise or in use cases when you just need to install the core of the application and we know that we don't need these recommends. And
Yeah,
so on.
that's basically what we've talked already. So there will be a command line switch or an option for DNF to basically switch the recommends and supplements on and off. And if they're switched on, they're already just installed if possible. They're just not triggering an error. So you can have some of them removed or excluded.
So
there's one more use case at SUSE, and this is translations.
Yep.
So the solver not only gets the PCI IDs and USB IDs from the hardware, but also the preferred languages. And then we can supplement, this translation package supplements this application together with this language. It's kind of an AND.
Yeah,
But if you have this application package installed and we have also chosen this language, then the translation package gets installed.
Yeah. And I like the feature. I don't like the implementation, which is a common theme.
It's only down with the boolean dependencies. That's
Yeah,
exactly
right.
what they are for.
That's one of the use cases I have for the boolean dependencies. So we can do that in a cleaner way, so you don't have special language code for handling this, because we already have a lot of special code that does handling the package file, the language files, and I don't like it.
If RPMs come out with a
Yeah, we will try to.
syntax,
We will try. So you will basically just do a supplements package, main package and language, and that.
So
We're not there, but we will get there.
what would you suggest as a packaging policy right now then? I would suggest jump every required to recommends if the basic thing works without it.
I think that's
It's
probably
actually-
it's
It's the current policy. Well, you don't specify anything in requires.
yeah, no, it's actually not the policy. The thing is, while in theory you should basically just set a requirements if the package is really required, as we don't have a other way of specifying the default installation. You have all kind of requirements which you actually don't require, which is basically where these packages need to be there.
Otherwise, you would have to split up maybe the package in more sub-packages.
I think that doing a very broad approach is the right thing, but it's probably not the right thing for the next Fedora release. So it's probably the right thing to start with something like maybe documentation or something,
Yeah,
and do this for one release, and after that switch over to a policy that says, well, everything that's not strictly needed should switch over.
Policy that starts with Fedora 23, no problem.
okay. Yeah, I would do that.
I don't think to mention just one more use case we had for the dependencies already. We thought about splitting the system debug. We wanted to get rid of the database from the main package. And we wanted to put the supplements dependency to the sub-package or like system debug hardware database. Will supplement the system
that in the past there was some tags which prohibit use of dependency, but I was unable to find it very recently. So
I think I saw that someone forwarded me the ticket, and there was a ticket to forbid weak dependency, but it was cancelled because they figured out, well, it doesn't do anything. So as long as Yum doesn't support it, it cannot break anything. So.
I would say I would recommend to write code use them actually, because it's like we want to write policies about something nobody has
used yet. Yeah. So the only thing I'm not sure if the create repo, which is on the builders, actually supports it yet. But it should actually, because we added support like it last summer, and
I tried to build the package in Koji in the dependencies and it worked.
okay.
We actually have 6 packages with dependencies in Fedora already.
And they're working. The question is,
I don't know, somebody from PC run version of Fedora.
So the question is are there weak dependencies in the metadata basically, because DNF should work.
I think all the builders have been updated to Fedora 21.
So maybe can someone just look it up?